Come on, Nick. All right, it was a 72 LTD I was driving one time. And this would have been in 1981. And I was going down to the place where I worked down there when I was doing fleet maintenance. I don't even remember why I was going down there late in the afternoon, but I had to do something down there. And I hit the gas really strong when I was leaving the Gulf Oil Refinery, heading down Highway 87. And all of a sudden, I had no power. And I'm just barely will go. And I drove that car, maybe we do 45. And so I said, this is strange. And so I hit a dead end for about an hour until it turned out that this laminated exhaust pipe, actually had 2 layers of pipe on them things. And they had gone over railroad tracks and stuff, and it kind of flattened the bottom of the pipe. And somehow or another, the exhaust got underneath that inside laminate and blew it up and filled up the exhaust with it just clogged it. Now you couldn't see it from the outside, but I kind of figured it out when I dropped the exhaust off of it and it revved up. And that's what it looked like, kind of on the inside. The exhaust was trying to get by here on the outside, you can see it, and it blew that up like that on both sides at the same time. I have no earthly idea why it did it on both sides at the same time. It was the 2 pieces of pipe right there. And what I did was, how many of you guys have ever welded any exhaust? You cut a piece of pipe out, and I happen to have some pipe, but I cut the piece of pipe out that was messed up. And I'm going to weld some pieces of pipe in there. Now you take the exhaust off and lay it on the floor and weld the pipe in there and then bolt it back up? Why?
Make sure it's all locked straight enough.
It won't fit, right? So what you do is you bolt everything up like it's supposed to go, and you prop it all up, and you put your piece of pipe in there, and then you tack weld it in about 3 or 4 places on the front and the rear. And then whenever you lower it, then you sew it up. Now even when we put that catalytic converter on in the welding department today, remember that? They welded, we marked it, they welded the front and they left the back loose. See, so that we could twist it around and get it like it was supposed to be, and then they sewed it up like it was. And then we put it back up. It was a factory job, That's kind of tricky if you hadn't thought about it. But I had all the stuff to fix that down there, so I went in and did that. All right, Doc. So, in a little bit of time on a heavy-footed accelerator, I went from full power to an engine that was struggling to exhale. Just couldn't hardly get any air out there. If an engine can't breathe, it ain't going to work right. So I revved the gas up. I had my hand over the carburetor and splattered gas up out of the carburetor and hit me on the hand. Which, I was thinking, that's because it couldn't breathe. The air was going the other way, I cut out the bad parts of the pipe. Now, this 2006 Chevy Silverado had 116,000 on the odometer and was blessed with a 4.8 liter, which, that's the smallest of the V8 engines they put in the Chevrolet trucks in. Came to us with a low power complaint. I said, well, this guy's pretty perceptive, the guy that drives it. It's not a powerhouse to begin with, and he was basically saying it just doesn't quite have the power it used to have. But he couldn't really point to anything other than that, really. And so, not having driven it regularly, it was hard to say, even after he drove it. He said, it seems like I got to apply more throttle to do the same amount of accelerating and holding speed and all than I used to. I mean, he's pretty perceptive. This guy, some people are not as perceptive as this guy is. He's pretty sharp. And so I was saying, well, maybe it's kind of built in. Who knows, because it was not running rough. It was just didn't quite have the power. So we checked it for exhaust clogging and all that kind of stuff. Had an intermittent miss at idle, though. And more or less stayed with cylinder number 4 on the scan tool misfire monitor screen. So we're counting misfires, And so that miss wasn't spark. It wasn't spark, coil, or injector related. So we pulled the coils and the plugs, moved them around. You put this coil on that cylinder and that coil on that cylinder. Look back at your scan tool screen and see if the miss moves with it. You can do that with spark plugs, injectors, coils. If you suspect that something's causing it, whatever you're moving to that other cylinder is going to be the deal. All right. So there were no misfire codes. It wasn't misfiring bad enough to set a code. Because you got these windows like 200 and 1,000 RPM where the misfires have to be, more than certain in those. Anyway, sometimes cylinder number 3, the data stream misfire monitor was moving around on that. We use our injector tester thing that you see there we got. All right. So, took the oxygen sensors out at the same time, and we screwed fittings into the exhaust hole, into the oxygen sensor holes, and we checked the exhaust back pressure with these gauges. There was no back pressure. If you see as much as 2 to 5 psi or more than that, then you got a problem, basically, with exhaust clogging. We even shot the pipes in front of it, behind them for temperature, with a forward-looking infrared camera. That ain't really truthful when the caps are so close to the manifold, because the front caps are supposed to light everything off anyway, you know what I'm saying? And so we sort of, where are we going next? You know what I mean? Taking this seriously. Instead of pushing it out the door and say there's nothing wrong with the truck, we kept looking because I kind of had the idea this guy was onto something. Fuel pressure while driving, even during this anemic acceleration, was steady at 61 psi. If the fuel pressure dropped while you're driving, see, that's when you're going to know you got a fuel delivery problem. Didn't have that. Fuel trims were mildly out of balance. Now, 7 degrees of spark sensor related spark retard according to the scan tool, but is that going to do it now? NOx sensors can lie and cause it to retard the time and it's steal the power. Had no smoking gun here really. The mass airflow was reading like we would have expected, and we did a volumetric efficiency calculation that didn't show anything conclusive. By the way, if you take your smartphone and you pull up volumetric efficiency calculator, you can actually, if you've got something to record, the temperature and the RPM and the mass airflow and all that kind of stuff, you can go and floorboard the accelerator a few times and get those numbers and tell if it's got a breathing problem. It's actually free apps you can get on your phone to calculate volumetric efficiency. You might look into that. Not a bad thing. We did a compression test, static running snap. Found number 4 cylinder only had half the compression all the other cylinders had during the snap test. Now we're getting somewhere. You got it? This one had issues with the valve train, and we were on the way to finding a smoking gun. I could have went ahead and used my pressure transducer and got a cylinder, compression waveform. Never got that far on this one. We basically figured this one out. Had been issues with the valve train. So one guy, he noticed a little bit of valve train activity under the valve cover. He heard clicking, and he started the engine and let it run on 4 cylinders. We found that little bit of click and clack on the exhaust rocker for number 4. So we removed that rocker arm and did a load lift measurement with an owl indicator. The exhaust lift should be 274 thousandths of an inch on this one, and we got 243. How much of a difference is that? 274 minus 243. It's a little. It's not very much, but it's significant when you're talking about valve lift. Okay. So what we've got is we put it on top of the push rod. We're not putting it on top of the. We're actually putting it on a push rod. You're actually getting the lift. Unless you got a collapsed lifter or something, but that's not much of that. So anyway, what we determined was, I said we could go ahead and tear this thing down, do a valve job, all this kind of stuff. Why don't we get a motor to throw in this thing and upgrade it to a 5.3? Because the 4.8, the 5.3, and the 6.0 are plug and play engines. They're all looking just alike. So we threw him a 5.3 in there. And the camshaft, had to be replaced, and probably lifters. By the time you actually start buying all the gaskets and all the parts you need to fix it, a replacement engine from the salvage yard just made more sense, really. LKQ sent us a 5.3 for a good price, plug and play. Ran like a rocket sled on rails, fixed it right up. Now you see how we got there? We were checking everything we could think of that would make it have lack power. We were eliminating things, finding out what it's not. That's how you do that, right? All right, this Camry with a noise. It came to us with a complaint of a noise when turning and accelerating on the driver's side. It was one of those noises you couldn't duplicate unless you drove a car right away. This is for you driveline people, okay? You got this? All right, when we got the pump combination right, you could get it to do it every time. I even took a video of it. The noise kind of had the characteristics of a CV axle with dimpled races, but it seemed to me like they was clicking. Usually when you're turning on the one that's got a worn out CV axle and those balls are rolling through those dimples, it'll be going click, 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 click. And this one here was going brrrr. It was too many clicks. The frequency of the clicks was too much. And I was saying, that don't really, that may be a CV axle, but I've never heard one that had that many clicks, that fast. Like if you drew it on a graph, if the frequency of the clicks was too much for a CV axle, it bothered me a little bit. It almost sounded like something making contact with the sheet metal backing plate. You know, when you're doing brakes, you accidentally bent that over against the rotor and it's, you know, something hit it. All right, so visual inspection took us nowhere. We didn't see nothing. All right, so CV axle boots were in good shape. They weren't busted. Usually when they bust and a bunch of dirt and grit gets up in there, it wears those things out quicker. All right, we connected the chassis here, this thing here, hardwired mics and drove it again. It sounded even more like something tapping against a piece of tin instead of a CV axle. So we ran out of time that day, told her to bring it back. Well, her spouse took it to the Toyota dealer. And they said, oh yeah, it's a CV axle. It'll be $800 parts and labor to replace it. Really? That's a non-starter. We said, they're not gonna play that game. So I decided to get a CV axle from the parts store. This gets better, okay? Now we're gonna pop it in there, and that if an outboard CV boot wasn't busted and the car only had 92K on the clock, how can it be a CV axle? You know, because you don't typically see those wear out and start clicking unless the boot's busted. I mean, it's just been my experience. I might, you know, I don't know everything. All right, so the answer and the problem. This is the outer joint with the boot roll back. Notice how unusually dry it is for one that was packed in the factory. It ain't really got enough grease in it. And this one's got 8 balls in it instead of 6, which meant that's why I had more clicks. You see what I'm saying? This is coming clearer now. I've still got that CV joint over here somewhere that somebody lost all of the little round balls out of it, but you can see the little dimples in the races anyway. This one didn't have enough to do the job. See the little dimples? Right here. See the little dimples right there? Every time that ball rolls across that dimple, where that wear is, click, 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 when you're turning, because they're rolling back and forth and those things can do with that. All right, so the first thing I did is I told her the part number and the price, $70, but no CV axle for a 2012 Camry was available, and there might not ever be, except from the dealer. So I asked the parts store to check with other parts stores, and the same answer came from those other vendors. Nope, sorry, can't do that, can't help you, can't get one, you know, this kind of stuff. This is a 2012 Camry after all, come on. Every CV axle a parts store sent for it, when they finally closed them out, they ordered them from about 4 different parts pipelines. See how much, see that bottom is bigger than the top? See how that's a fatter one? That's the one they were sending us, that's the one we needed. This one would not go in there, obviously. And so we dug and hunted and poked around, and everybody kept sending one. He ordered one off Amazon. Nothing fit. Parts store, that parts store, this parts store, the other pipeline. Well, it's supposed to fit, that's what's in the parts book. You know, this kind of thing. Well, could I change the hub? Maybe. If the thing goes through and use a 30 spline CV axle instead of that 26? Well, I went online to check out, and I found out, I called Toyota, got the part number for a hub that fit a 2012, and then I called the parts store back to give the Toyota part number, and that crossed to a Dorman part number. So the Dorman part number fits a 2004 to 2009 Camry. Right? So I had the parts store give me that hub and a CV axle for a 2009 Camry, and the one for the 2009 Camry went right into that 2012, just like it was made for it. It was a screwed up mess. We fought with that thing for 2 weeks. Anyway, so what's wrong with these pictures? What's wrong with the picture on the top left? Left the bolt loose. You go up under a car where somebody's been working, you find a bolt loose. I'm going to tell you something that, well, we'll talk about that later, what me and Kayla found yesterday. All right, see this water pump here? Like I said, I'm all done, and when we poured water in, it just ran out. See, you didn't even tighten that bottom bolt. And I mean, I don't know if it bottomed out, I can't remember what the story was. Now look at this one down here, what's wrong with C? The clamp is on the radiator hose neck, not on the hose. There was a guy that fixed this at home, and he brought it up here to us, and when we got under there is what we found. Okay. So, and whenever you're going in there and you're fixing something down in there where you think nobody's ever going to find it, somebody will find it. But remember this: every job is a picture of the person that did it. Imagine that. If somebody's taking your picture, are you going to put up your best foot forward and try to smile? Some people, a lot of these kids have been around here, as soon as you point a camera at them, they break out in a big smile. Well, whenever somebody's coming behind you and looking at your work, it needs to be smiling and looking good. You know what I mean? Not no sloppy piece of junk like what's coming apart and the clamps in the wrong place. Y'all couldn't help the busted clamps on the Explorer. And I didn't expect that. I've seen it only once or twice before. The clamps on the top and the bottom radiator hoses on that white Explorer cracked. You know, the spring-loaded clamps. And I had water leaks. They had them in the right place, but they weren't clamping right because that spring clamp popped. So remember that. Get rid of the stupid spring clamps and put regular clamps on them. Okay? That's what we needed to do. Find the problem in this picture. The fuel trims are running at plus 18%. The fuel trims are running high. You got 10 seconds to find it. See it? 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Y'all are a bunch of miserable, rotten little smurfs. Watch. See this? That's unplugged from that air inlet tube. That'll make you have fuel trim issues, and you didn't even see it looking at the picture. You got to be noticing things that other people don't see. I walked up to this car right here after a guy got through working on it at a dealership, and I took a picture of it because he was about to close the hood. And he was going to have a check engine light, and he was going to have a comeback. The customer would be upset because he had to drive from wherever, you know, this kind of thing. Remember that. All right, what's being done here? Anybody know? This is basically the receiver dryer built onto the condenser, and it's being replaced. You just replace that sock. Pull that out, pull the old sock out, put it back down in there. Screw that new cap back down in there. That's how you replace that. It's got a desiccant in there and it keeps absorbing the moisture. That's AC stuff. That's where it starts, and that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when you pull it out. What's wrong here? AC is not cooling. What might be the problem here? We destroyed the windings in it, or we didn't destroy them, they burned up. And when they burn up, you blow fuses and the AC don't work anymore. Well, that one had to have a compressor. You can buy the compressor in the coil, but it costs about as much as the whole compressor, so I'm hardly going to change those. That's what it looks like from the top. See that? Look for that now when you're looking for something like this. Here's the clutch coils, don't just open up and they burn out. 06 Impala, AC clutch shorted out like you saw right there. That wasn't the same one, but it did that same thing. Blows the fuse after a few minutes. He dropped by for diagnosis and estimate, bring car back on Monday. Car never showed up. 3 weeks later, the car shows up with a lot of electrical problems. What the guy did was he got a piece of 12-2 Romex wire, stripped all the insulation off of it, bent it into a horseshoe, and rammed it in there where the fuse goes. I'll keep that AC cooling. The fuse is in there for a reason, you know. It didn't blow the fuse, but it burned up all them wires all up under the hood. You can't get a wire harness for a 2006 Impala. And if you split that thing and fix it's going to take 10, 12 hours to do it. This came into a shop that belonged to a buddy of mine, and the guy said he just figured he was going to drive it like it was, but it was almost undrivable because the guy, instead of letting him put a compressor clutch on there, see, he rammed that piece of wire down in there. That's always a bad idea. All right. Customer destroys the harness. See, that's a fuse that he rammed it in there. He used some of that. He declined to repair it. He had destroyed his own car. The fuse is designed to be a weak link in the electrical chain. All right. A customer trying to work around. He saw the fuse as the problem. Was the fuse the problem? No, it was not. He made more problems for himself. All right, how does that find a short? Let's find a short. Some hot circuits fan out all over the place like courtesy lights with engine control. If there's a short in a system like this, you can get a 10 amp circuit breaker, which is what I was waving around here. See that 10 amp circuit breaker? Right there? That's what I'm talking about. That's what this is right here. 10 amp circuit breaker. Get a marker lamp bulb. A little marker lamp bulb put in there. And then on the other side, you'll come up with some wires, and you're going to replace the fuse with that circuit breaker. Right? Now with the tool in place and the circuit energized, the breaker's going to cycle off and on. Ding, 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 ding. And when that fuse is open, when the circuit breaker is open, that light's going to be on. When it's closed, that light's going to be off. In the meantime, it's trying to fire up everything it's fed by all of these dadgum wires. Now if you're looking at something like courtesy lights, where you got these map lights and this coming on, I mean the vanity lights and all this hogwash. What I used to do is do that. I'd put that thing in there, let it start clicking, and I would look and I would say, okay, that light's coming on and going off real dim. That one is. This one's not. That one's not coming on at all. And so I'd look, and the one that was feeding that one would be the one that would be short to the ground. Somebody snapped the cover back on or something and pinched a wire or that kind of stuff. But if it's only one of all of these wires that are pinched, you know, how are you going to isolate it? See what I mean? That's tricky, isn't it? You people that are doing electrical, you're gonna be there one day. That's just the way it is. You got to have a strategy. You can build you one of these dadgum things for not much money at all. They don't cost very much. Something else you can do, most people don't know about. You know this remote right here? They put out some really, you know, if they're poorly shielded. So if you turn your AM radio all the way down to the low end of the band, right, it's real susceptible to static. So turn it down to the low end of the AM band, turn the volume up, go over here by the radio antenna, wherever it happens to be, and pull the trigger on your remote, an old TV remote, and it'll go make static. All right. Then you're going to go to the fuse that's blowing and get on the side of it that's feeding the circuit where the short is. And while the radio's on, you walk down where you know that wire goes, pulling the trigger on that remote. And when you get to the place where the short is, the radio will go. Is that a pretty cool trick or whatever, you know? All right, so mass airflow code on the 96 Chevy pickup, blown fuse. All right, so this thing right here is throwing us a mass airflow code, blown a fuse, mass airflow, and the problem we found, there's no power going to the mass airflow sensor. It was the only code we had. Immediately, when you turn the key on, pow, the fuse will blow. We put the circuit breaker in there, like I was showing you about, and so basically, we disconnected this O2 sensor, and that removed the short, because that was one of the things that was fed by that fuse, see? Mass airflow was also fed by it. We never had any kind of a code for any O2 sensor heater or nothing. But that's how we found that. And see, the mass airflow was the code we were getting, but the O2 sensor was causing it, because it was shorting and blowing the fuse that was feeding all that. So that's pretty good. So we put our circuit breaker up there. It was a breaker light tool that helped us pinpoint it. That little tool, we put it in there, and it was going, and when we unplugged that, that light went off and stayed off, and everything else stayed awake. You got it? You bet? All right, so tell me something that you know now that you didn't know when you came in here. Nick, you shouldn't have to be thinking like that. I need to take a picture of him with that look on his face. All that. So, you get that? I mean, you see where I'm going with that? It's really
a lot of knowledge.
Huh?
I said that was a lot of knowledge.
Well, I was trying to, you know, this is special topics. I was trying to hit the highlights of a lot of stuff. And that's kind of what I try to do on that. So,
There's also a bunch of interesting stories in that too.
huh?